All right, we should be live. And I should have audio. I appear to be live. Looks like everything's running on all cylinders. I see Steve's got first blood this morning. Good morning, sunshine. How you doing? Yes, sir. Let's do this. Good morning. Cameron says, comment section, assemble. Oh, I'm glad you're watching this morning, Cameron. I see, we're firing on all cylinders today. I've got 2 Steves and 2 Dannys. Good morning, you beautiful people. All right. So, on the face of it, looking at the thumbnail and the title for this show, one might expect that this is going to be some grumpy old white guy bitching about Disney race swapping characters and, oh, Tinkerbell's supposed to be white. No. Okay, for starters, yes, Tinkerbell's always been a white character, largely because the original source material. I'm going to touch that for a minute. I am. But it entirely misses the point. All right? Now, in all fairness, I got somebody on Twitch trying to sell me followers. Banned. All right. So, the most generous interpretation of Disney's constant race swapping, right? Black Tinkerbell, black Mermaid, etc. It's obnoxious. And it's obnoxious because you're not doing anything productive or useful. All you're doing is taking old, successful, cherished, treasured stories and properties and intentionally damaging them. Now, that's not to say that the cast of any one of these stories couldn't be told with characters of a different race, but the one that Cameron and I like to refer to when we touch this subject is, of course, Miles Morales, right? Spider-Man. Miles Morales was not a black Peter Parker. And this was an incredibly important distinction. Instead of making Peter Parker black, a creative, talented, and interesting author generated a new character, a new concept, right? In a lot of ways, Miles Morales is fanfic, right? Fan fiction. It's a what if, but it's an original character. And the reason this is important, if Peter Parker was black and grew up steeped in the black culture of the boroughs of New York where Peter Parker grew up, that is a very different cultural experience to the experience of white Peter Parker. Right? For one, white Peter Parker is an orphan whose friends are not fatherless and who has a strong masculine figure in the household. A young black Peter Parker is a very different creature. Doesn't mean that a young black Peter Parker can't grow up to be successful and even pursue a similar path as a photojournalist as Peter Parker and a hero as Spider-Man, but he's a very, very different creature. He'd have a different sense of humor, a different sense of culture, a different priority of justice, etc. Right? Miles Morales, however, is a character who he's Afro-Cuban, right? So he's got a black experience and he's got a Latin experience from his black father and Cuban mother. And that's a very, very different cultural upbringing experience than a white Peter Parker had in New York, right? And he's not just a race-swapped character. He's an entirely unique character. And part of what that character is, his father being in law enforcement and a black man in New York, right, instills that Miles Morales character with a very certain and targeted message. Even if you don't like the message, which I'm not making any criticisms of the particular message there, but even if you don't like that message, the point is, it is a unique and specific perspective. It's not just slapping a new coat of paint on something and thinking that it doesn't change the inside. Now, with the race swapping thing that's going on with Disney, I've got this article from, of all places, TMZ. Woo! Disney facing backlash over Black Tinkerbell in Peter Pan and Wendy, right? And here's what I thought was interesting about it. The Twitter response is basically, it says, in case you missed it, Disney dropped the trailer for the live-action film Tuesday, with fans getting a first look at Yara Shahidi as everyone's favorite pixie. But a bunch of people are complaining about the switch-up, saying it feels like the company's more interested in image than inclusivity. Okay, so the same people that are doing this kind of stuff are the ones who have canceled comedians and actors over blackface. They're the ones that are harassing Ben Stiller over Tropic Thunder, and the ones that are literally assaulting and beating college students on campuses because a white kid's not allowed to have dreadlocks, and they cry cultural appropriation. How is this not the same as blackface? How is taking a traditionally white character, and when I say traditionally white character, it is from a story written by an English author about English things during a period where black people in England are not in any way a majority, right? He's talking about a certain population size, segment, and the experience of those people. Now, the first big takeaway from Disney's constant gender and race swap deal is this. Disney is telling us, and Disney's not the only one, but Disney is the most visible offender right now. Disney is telling us quite plainly that creative, original artists are all white. Disney is telling us that there are no people of color, there are no LGBTQ people, there are no people who are not straight white men who are capable of having intelligent, original thoughts. Only white men can do creative, original material. That's not the opinion that I'm expressing. That is the message that Disney is giving us. That non-white, non-male people are not capable of creating interesting, original content that the consumer wants to view. It's that simple. That is what Disney believes. You know it by their actions. You know it by what they show us. But the swapping is more insidious than that. On the face of it, making Tinkerbell black is actually not a terribly substantial change. It's important to understand in this context what Tinkerbell is. And to understand what Tinkerbell is, you have to really understand what Peter Pan as a whole is, what the whole story of Neverland is, right? So race-swapping Tinkerbell is not as substantial as race-swapping, for example, Peter Parker, like we said. But like I said, with Peter Parker, instead of a race swap, they gave us a unique character who pursued becoming Spider-Man because he idolized Spider-Man. So it told an additional story, and it even compared and contrasted the differences between their cultural backgrounds and how that affected the type of Spider-Man the two characters became. Right? Whereas when you're talking about Tinkerbell, Tinkerbell is the fairy of porn. Tinkerbell is the non-entity fantasy of sexual fulfillment that exists as the contrast to the more mature, substantial, and beautiful Wendy, a real human woman that Peter Pan can fall in love with. Now, let's be real. The Peter Pan story, there is a lot of Oedipus complex going on in this particular story, because in many ways, Wendy is both mother and love interest to Peter. Now, she is a mothering, nurturing figure to all of the lost boys, but primarily she is the maturing influence. So she is simultaneously Peter's mother and his potential, right? We never quite get there, but potential lover. So Peter Pan represents the hedonism, the selfishness, and let's not beat around the bush on it, the absolute sociopathy of the adolescent male. All babies are sociopaths. Little girls socialize a little earlier than little boys. And I use that word socialize rather than mature. While both are true, the distinction is significant. To mature, right, one gains a bit of self-awareness. One starts to understand what sacrifice is. One starts to appreciate and employ the valuable and profit-generating tactics of delayed gratification. These are all important things, right? Girls figure that out earlier. Boys don't ever figure it out until there's a profit motive there. And that profit motive is pure flesh. The thing, the motivating influence in a young boy's life is an almost completely undisciplinable, inevitable drive to engage in sex. And to that end, he will employ all manner of strange and surprising activities, like getting a damn job. So when you look at the world of Peter Pan, when you look at the Neverland, the whole world of Neverland, you have a few key and significant figures. You have the Lost Boys and Peter Pan, who together represent the artificial extension of adolescence and the socializing infantilization of the man, right? The desire of a tyrannical government, of a tyrannical power to infantilize men and prevent them from growing mature and strong and self-sacrificing and gratification delaying proper adult men. And then you have Hook. You have Captain Hook and the Pirates, right? These are men who live their lives rooted. And they do this in order to be the thing that terrifies the boys of growing up. the Hook and his pirates represent a great weight of tyrannical socialism. Hook and his pirates live their lives without work. They don't earn, they take, right? They're also hedonistic. They are also living their life in reckless abandon because their sociopathy and adolescence has never been tempered by that drive. Those characters, those men have lived their lives in Neverland completely divorced from the exposure to a maturing and socializing influence of a partner. It is important to remember that a woman without a man or a man without a woman is incomplete. Unmarried adults are tragic things. They lack the other half. Idiomatically, one of my favorite little quirks of language in Korean, in English, we call each other honey, baby, sweetie, stuff like that. The Koreans refer to their significant others, and it's usually the girls. I say it to my wife because it's cute and funny that we understand it with each other, but they call each other chagia, chagia, and the phrase literally means myself, as in you are the rest of me. Right? So Peter requires that maturing influence to come in and drag him out of the sociopathy that is infantilized adolescence. Right? Wendy is what makes Peter become a man. And part of what scares Peter about becoming a man, and scares every little boy about becoming a man, little boys like Peter Pan, this is why he's eternally youthful, are immortal. They cannot die. They do not have a fear of death. I'm not talking mythologically or hypothetically. I'm talking about the understanding that young boys have of their mortal capacity, which is to say that they don't. They don't have a fear of death yet. They haven't grasped it. They haven't wrestled with it. Now, a death in the family as a first experience, as a first brush with the existential crisis of mortality, can in fact be a replacement for a woman as a major maturing influence. It gives a young boy a perspective and makes him ask himself if he can die. And whether or not that affects the way that he's going to make his decisions going forward, right? And it will. So, all that. I'm going to share a little bit of the trailer with you. Here's where you see that they're really missing the point. Yep.
Are you
Lost boys?
Every last one of us.
But you're not all boys.
So?
Yes, you are. You have to be. You have to all be boys. The Lost Boys must all be boys, precisely because the point is that Wendy comes in and is the mature mother, right? And Tinkerbell's there for a reason too. I've described all this about how a woman can be that maturing influence that drives a man to improve himself. Right? One of my favorite movies, As Good as It Gets. The lady asks Jack Nicholson, say one nice thing to me. And he stops and he thinks about it for a second and he looks at her and he says, you make me want to be a better man. Staggering. Absolutely staggering. Brilliant. You make me want to be a better man. That's what Peter Pan is about. Hook and his pirates are the example that terrifies the boys. I might grow up to be a bad man who is mortal. The crocodile has taken Hook's hand right? And swallowed the clock. The crocodile is, the dragon of chaos. He's got the ticking clock reminding you constantly that this is the ticking of time. This is the inevitable onset of your mortality. And now that you're a man, now that you're grown, now that you've matured and taken on the responsibilities of manhood to whatever degree that may be, the dragon of chaos and death, the crocodile, and the ticking, the constant, eternal ticking. He's already got a piece of you, right? Yeah, you're in your 40s and your knees and your back hurt. Congratulations, the crocodile of time has taken a bite out of your ass, and it's gonna get the rest of you eventually. That's the point. That's the metaphor of the crocodile. The dragon of chaos and death will pursue you until you are destroyed, utterly and completely by it, and that is inevitable. You will die. That is what the crocodile is. It is Hook's inevitable demise, right? And Hook himself, he is incomplete. He's missing that hand, and in most representations, he also has a peg leg, but Hook is missing parts of himself. He's incomplete because he never had a mother, right? That's addressed. And he never had a lover. Now, you can make your pirate jokes about how they might not be so concerned about male or female as they are about warm and concave. But that's entirely beside the point. So when you have Disney race swapping characters and people getting up in arms about that, let me just remind you, this is not the first time that there was a black Lost Boy, for example. Everybody loved this round little guy. He was fantastic, and he wasn't the only black Lost Boy either. There's the other one. And guys, if y'all didn't get a little misty when the little black Lost Boy went up and put his hands on Robin Williams' face and squished him around and said, "There you are, Peter," then I don't know what to tell you. You need some love in your life, maybe some alcohol. You're not good yet. Then the last thing that I want to touch is here's the other place that Disney's done a bit of tweaking with the material and made a very serious error. Now we have Wendy. Oh, yes, now Wendy's an action hero too. Oh, goody, girl power, girl boss, and missing the point. As long as there have been people, it has been this simple. The boobies stay in the cave with the babies while daddy goes and puts his life on the line to face the unknown and unknowable in order to slay the mammoth and feed the family. At its very basic root, the core cause for this is simple. It doesn't make sense to send the boobies, the food for the babies, away into danger where it's at risk, where she is at risk, in order for the demoralized and effeminized, castrated house husband to sit back and provide no value. I can't nurse babies, despite appearances, but I can sure enough slay a mammoth and drag it back to the cave. So, if mommy who can nurse the babies leaves the cave, then how am I helping her? Right? By tending to my offspring, she is helping me. And somebody has to do it. Somebody has to feed the babies. Somebody else has to do the outdoor labor. Somebody has to go out into the unknown and hunt the mammoth, slay it, and drag it back to the cave. Because otherwise, everybody starves. Wendy gets to be the damsel in distress. When Peter has to go and rescue Wendy from the pirates, it's not just so the hero has something to do. The audience is being reminded, whether you understand it consciously or not, you understand it viscerally. You understand it in your animal brain. That the fact that Hook goes and captures Wendy in order to lead Peter into a trap is a symbol to remind you that she has extraordinary value. Such value, so much. They talk about objectification. How about valuation, you silly sycophants? How about valuation? If my wife is held hostage somewhere, and I have even the slightest possibility that I'm going to be able to resolve that situation with risky violence, you had best to believe that I will relish the opportunity, because it is not just what men do, it is what we are for. To go out and by force of will shape and craft a world that has order and is inhabitable. Go, walk outside, and don't ever walk back into a building. Sit down somewhere nice, sunny, and see how long you live. The world outside is chaos, masquerading as a distant death, but it's right there. It's right in front of you. And as a man, your responsibility, your base calling, is to organize that into habitable territory, because that is how the human survives. By swapping the race of a character, Disney makes a mistake. They tell the audience that they're more interested in the appearance of inclusivity and diversity. They're more interested in the mystique of the fetishized of fetishized esoterica and exotic erotica. Right? By gender swapping the Lost Boys, Disney misses the entire crucial, valuable psychological commentary that is the archetype of the Pan. They lose it entirely. Just on the trailer, I can tell you that it is possible that this film can be beautiful. It can be expertly filmed. The cinematography may be breathtaking. And the film will be intellectual, psychological, philosophical garbage. Because they've sacrificed all pretense at producing the story in a direct subjugation, supplication to the Church of Wokeness. And it's not complicated. Disney believes that non-white, non-males are incapable of creating original material. That's all I've got. So y'all be safe out there. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow. And little preview. Tomorrow, there's a very interesting lawsuit that has been filed against some of the higher-ups at the Black Rifle Coffee Company. So, at the risk of giving BRCC airtime, I'm going to talk about that lawsuit and the difference between veterans, special veterans, and civilians. And you're going to find that a lot of what I'm going to have to offer in that commentary is going to revolve around the inadequacy of civilians of a certain generation. I think you'll get a chuckle out of it. Today, I hope I was informative and interesting. I don't think I was as funny as I would usually like to be. Tomorrow, because of the nature of the material, we're going to be into some dark humor territory, because that is precisely the problem. So, y'all be safe out there. Love you. See you tomorrow.